Hello and welcome to my lightning monk slash freeze explosion monk quick guide. Um, this does not require the unique to get going, and I actually think it's rather good. I'm running T15's corrupted, T16's corrupted, no problem right now. So let's just get right into it. Look at the passive tree. I'm in Invoker Monk. Right now, I've only got 3 of the trials, so I've only got, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. First one, I went into critical hits, ignore non-negative enemy monster elemental resistances, because I went crit straight out of the gate. I'll get to that in just a second with the leveling through the tree. Second, you would want to go into gain 10% of damage as extra cold damage. And then third, gain 10% of damage as extra lightning damage. So at level 1, you're going to want to go into skill speed, crit bonus, into flow like water. Come up here, grab crit, keep going. For the small passives, you kind of want to go half and half. I think early you're going to want to go mostly dexterity, but always keep a little bit of intelligence to have some of the other spirit gems, but we'll get into gems in a little bit. Grab this early as well, both of these evasion nodes. Get this straight out of the gate coming over here. Do not get this just yet. Do not get these two just yet. We'll get those later. This, head up here. Do not get that. Head straight to this crit node. So the biggest thing I can say is we are getting crit right out of the gate. So your first thing is to get all these crit nodes. So crit. Head over here. Get the crit. You can get this one early. That's fine. Head up. Get this crit node as well. Don't get the crit damage bonus, get the crit chance at early levels. And then we're going to go, you can either go down, grab this because it's just a flat attack damage and helps blind on hits with attacks, which is nice. Or you can go straight up here and then also get this crit. And by this time that you have these 3 crit nodes, this one here, and this larger crit tree here, you should be able to get resonance and start using that with some of your spirit gems that I'll talk about in here a little bit. But that's going to be feeding into what's helping us generate our charges with Combat Frenzy. So it turns, what we're doing is we're turning Frenzy charges into power charges. So see that, gain power charges instead of frenzy charges. What this does is gains a frenzy charge when you freeze, electrocute, or pin an enemy no more than once every 2.1 seconds. What we're doing is we're freezing all the time because we're going to be using Ice Strike. So we'll get into that in a second. And then you're going to come out here, go down, get this, and at this point, once you get this, we're not going down here just yet, because that's a little later in the game. We should be getting power charges now, so I'd say this is your first one that you would want to get. This is the second most important one that you should get. And then at this point, you should probably get more defensives, so I'd get this. And then you can come over here and get your least important power charge over here. This just increases duration, which isn't that important. But yeah, it does have a nice notable bonus of 20% increased critical damage bonus if you've gained a power charge recently. But that's negligible. And then now to get into the other things. Now we can go into this and this. Now we can go also into this and this. If you're not freezing and you're not shocking enough, you can hold off on getting this, well, this side at least, the bottom side, because this has freeze buildup and attack speed, which is very important. But if you need shock, just get these 2 nodes at any time. And then we'll move up here. We'll get increased elemental, and then increased elemental damage if you've chilled recently, which we're doing 100% of the time. And increased elemental damage if you've shocked an enemy recently, which we're doing 100% of the time as well. Okay, and then some of the last things to get on the tree are these attack speed nodes here. This evasion and maximum energy shield here. And did I miss anything? Oh yes, you should get this early. I'd say probably around level 25-ish you should get this. It's just, you can get it on the way to getting these 3 attack damage nodes. It's just helps with mana, because at first I went all the way over here to get 15 reduced mana cost while not on low mana, and I also went into the reduced mana cost of skills because it was really costly to use my cast on freeze and just my auto attack in general, my ice strike in general, and this just really helps while you're still low level and don't have much intelligence and don't have much maximum mana. Right now I'm sitting at 1142 mana, and it's not that horrible. As you can see, it still goes down pretty fast, but I'm killing tons of mobs all the time, so it just usually stays at high mana. Unless there's a boss fight, I usually begin the boss fight and just start attacking, and then just immediately triggering the a little bit of lag there, and then immediately triggering the mana pot, and it basically just keeps me topped off. So basically, if you can tell what this tree is I'm going for max power charges, going for a bunch of crit chance, and attack damage, chance to shock, chance to freeze, and a little bit of defensives via the only few nodes that we do have to even go into defensives. I would say one of the last things you should go for, or probably once you hit about in your 70s or 80s, or even 65 to 80, I would say, is that you should start going into these. This one right here is actually more important than this one, I would say, because at this point you should have a weapon and critical hit from all the other nodes, and this won't do too much, but it'll increase your damage by quite a bit. So we're going to be the reason why this one's very important is because if you can see, I only have 2 spirit out of my 202. So I've chopped my spirit up very, very precisely. So you're getting all the reservations of the Herald, increased damage with the Herald. And if you can see this is one of the biggest things, because this gives us 100% damage. Because I have Herald of Ice active, and I have Herald of Thunder active. So that's giving us 50% from Herald of Ice and 50% from Herald of Thunder. So I'm running both of those. And oh, by the way, from the jewels I only have 3 jewel slots. But in each one, this is your priority. Attack damage, attack speed with quarterstaves, and Herald skills dual increased damage. These were not that expensive when I bought them. They were probably a 20 exalts. I mean, you could probably find one for cheaper. 5 to 15, 20 to 30 maybe. Unless these get bought up by people who are trying to do something similar. But yeah. So, and just there's 4 stats, like 5% increased mana recovery from flasks right here. I don't care. It's just nice if you do get something that's useful. Like poison duration, that's useless. This one I think does have something useful. Yeah, debuffs on you expire 15% faster. Nice, don't care. What you care about is getting high Herald damage and high attack damage, because both of the Herald skills, Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder, are attacks. So you're basically getting a flat, what I'm getting 37% increased Herald damage on this. So like, yeah, 35%, 36, like 35, 36, and 37. So that's almost 100%, well, over 100%, I think, of increased Herald damage. And you have this 12%, 12%, and 100% from here. So you're doing tons of attack damage with the heralds. Unfortunately, as a monk, we don't have many attack damage nodes to go into. Basically, just this one's the only useful attack damage one to go into. This one you can go into. I'm thinking about maybe going into this once I get higher level. I'm only level 89 right now, so I've still got, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 more points before it's just too hard to earn XP anymore. But if I did have any more points, I would go into this one, and this one, and get more attack speed. And then I would do this one and this one to follow up just to have. But this one is kind of bad because you're either on full life and you're getting 30% or 50% on low life and nothing in between. And if you will notice once you get into maps, you're always, I mean, if you don't have any life regen or any type of recovery at all, like me, poison goes straight through energy shield, and you can be sitting at, I could be sitting at 1400 life and just not notice and just be missing out on 30% increased damage. So that's why I went out of that. Okay, I think we covered the tree. Let's go into skills now. So skills, I have everything filled right now. Your main damage dealer is Ice Strike. You're gonna want to get this as high leveled and with as many sockets as you can. I've thankfully gotten lucky enough to get a perfect jeweler's orb and bought another greater jeweler's orb to get this going. But I think by far I do have the best things that you can socket in here. So more area damage. Supported skills have 50% less area of effect. This just gives flat 40% more damage because the area of effect, I didn't even notice the decrease at all. So that's just 40% more damage flat, in my opinion. Ice Bite. Attacks gain 35% of damage as cold damage for 3 seconds on freezing an enemy. And this freezes like 90% of the time it'll freeze on the first hit. So, and that'll give the big point with that is attacks gain. Not just this attack, all attacks. And you remember what I said with Herald of Thunder and Herald of Ice? Those will gain 35% of damage as cold damage for 3 seconds upon freezing an enemy. So, very, very useful for your Herald skills. Very useful and overall clear. Once again, same type of idea. Supported skills grant 3 rage on melee hit. So let's look at this. Rage. Grants 1% more attack damage per 1 rage gain to a maximum of 30. So, I gain 3 rage on melee hit. I'm constantly melee hitting. You'll get it up to, I'd say, 20 within a few seconds. So that's 20% increased damage. Grants 1% more, so multiplicative, attack damage per 1 rage gained. And that is for every... It's a buff, just like this. This gives you a buff that increases all of your attacks, not just the socketed skill. So this also is like a flat 20 to 30% constant increase on my Herald damage, which is amazing. So that's why I have this. It's great, especially when you have enough density to run around and continue to melee and not lose any rage. Third is supported skills deal 25% more weapon elemental damage. This is just a flat 25% multiplicative on the Ice Strike. So this does not apply to the other attacks. It's just for Ice Strike. And supported skills have 25% more attack speed. If I did not have this, see it going right now. If I did not have this, quite a bit slower. I have enough attack speed at this point where it's not that bad, but before I did have attack speed, it was miserable. So, yeah. And this is the tooltip right now. 55,000 without any of my shocks or exposures on the target and none of my additive damage. I think I've gotten this up to like 300, 400k while doing maps. I can pause and try to get a glimpse of it when everything's ramped up, whenever I have high rage and whenever I have this procced and some other stuff procced, but that'll get up to very high. I'm also rocking Cast on Freeze, which is 60 spirit, So you are going to want high spirit, very high spirit. You're going to want at least, I think, 55 spirit on your chest and high spirit. Try to shoot above my numbers. I'm looking at the spirit here. So I have 56 spirit on my chest and 46 spirit on my amulet. Shoot at that or above it, okay? Because I do not have any leftover spirit. So before we continue, make sure that you do not mess this up by not having enough spirit, okay? Because I have a lot of auras and stuff that reserves spirit. So we have cast on freeze. Doesn't really matter what level. If it's level 10 to level 14, that's fine. We just needed to cast Sniper's Mark, which is what helps us generate power charges on bosses. Because we can't generate power charges via combat frenzy on bosses as easily. So you're not constantly freezing a boss, so you're not constantly getting power charges. So we need something to help us a little bit get power charges on a boss. And thankfully, Sniper's Mark, next critical hit against marked enemy, has 63% damage to critical bonus. Well, that's great, because if you look at my Ice Strike, I have a 47% chance to crit. So, pretty good. And supported skills gain 40% increased energy. Skills triggered by supported meta skills have 35% chance to refund half their energy costs. Very good. Okay, and that is cast on freeze. So that's just to help with bosses, and even rare mobs if you need it, really. It'll just chunk them a little bit more, but I run through them pretty fast, so it's negligible on those. It's just really for power charges. Wind Dancer, another 30 spirit to reserve. Just 18% more evasion per stage, and you gain stages by not being hit. So I'm sitting at, I believe, 72% evasion. If I unclick this, well, I can't unclick it, but it gives me quite a bit of evasion. So what, almost 60% with 3 stages, and if I add enough quality to it, it would give me another 20% basically. So it's nice. These are, I think, the mandatory ones that I would use for right now. Energy Barrier, Energy Shield Recharge begins immediately and is not interrupted by damage for 2 seconds when stunned while using support skills. You get stunned quite a lot, unless you have huge stun threshold, which I do not at the moment. And that's the charm that I'm rocking, by the way. We'll get to gear in a second, but just helps out with defensives a little bit. Yeah. So, Energy Barrier, Unbreakable, 200% more stun threshold while using supported skills, which is just good if you have enough strength to use that. You only need enough strength for these two, I would say. Yeah. So don't worry about getting this unless you have enough strength to squeeze it in. See, I have 3 out of 3 strength slots filled, so I was lucky enough to get that in there. Just blind, because this, if you don't know what Wind Dancer does, if you get hit by a melee attack, it'll do Gale Force, which is just a little small attack that knocks enemies back. And I put blind on it, so if you get hit by them, it'll knock them back and blind them. So good defensive to have. Tempest Bell, this is only for bosses. Only for bosses. Or if you're a lower level, say in the 30s and 40s, and you're having issues going through the campaign, you can use this on rares to help you kill them faster. But yeah, so Tempest Bell with Glaciation, this is why I have it. This is my boss killer. So I get freeze buildup to help me generate charges via combat frenzy. So it's all cold. Inflicts cold exposure. So they go into negative 20 of the specified resistance. So that's negative 20. So if you'll see as an invoker, my critical hits ignore non-negative enemy monsters' elemental resistances. So that means basically they could have 1,000 elemental resistance, and my critical hits just ignore that, and basically treats it as 0 whenever I critical hit. What exposure does is it goes negative, so negative 20. So just flat 20% increased damage, more damage to monsters when they have this on critical hit with cold damage. And I have exposure applied by supported skills has 30% increased effect, so it's even stronger. So I don't know what that would be. So 20, whatever 30% more of 20 is. Like 25 or something. Alright, and that's Tempest Bell. So use that on bosses, freezes them up to help me generate charges, and basically curses them with a super good cold exposure, because that's what I'm doing most of my damage with is Ice Strike, which is cold. Combat Frenzy, just here to generate charges, so gain a frenzy charge when you freeze, electrocute or pin. Freeze is the big one. We're going to be freezing to generate our frenzy charges. We're gaining frenzy charges with this, but since we went into this notable, like I was talking about earlier, I gained power charges instead of frenzy charges. Okay, so that's huge. That's what makes this build much easier. And then I have supported skills have 50% chance to grant an additional charge. Just helps with gaining more charges. Okay, next is Charge Staff. Grants flat added quarterstaff attack lightning damage per power charge consumed. I have max power charges right now of 7. So yeah. So what is that? I would say 10 times 7, 70. You can reliably count on 70 flat lightning damage from this, which is pretty good. And I am doing lightning damage as well, so I need to shock and everything to mesh with everything else. We'll get into why shocking is important here in a little bit. But yeah, so Charge Staff supports support attacks always maim on hit. Pretty simple, maim. Okay, Overcharge. 75% increased magnitude of shocks inflicted with supported skills. Magnitude of shocks. So just 75% increased. So they're better by 75%. Almost double. So shock is 20% increased damage to an opponent. When it's just a normal shock. 75% increased, it goes up to like 35%, I believe. Yeah. Supported skills have 100% more chance to shock. I have this on my Charge Staff specifically as the shocking mechanism in my build because this is what I can use during boss fights. I don't have Herald of Thunder for shocking because it's already pretty good at shocking on its own, and you can't really use Herald of Thunder during boss fights. You reliably have to kill enemies to keep Herald of Thunder stacks going to trigger on your auto attacks. So, maim, overcharge, conduction. Good to go. Alright. Next, Herald of Ice. Oh, before I skip this, Charge Staff. Before I skip this, there's one gem that you cannot use with your Charge Staff. Yes. Do not use Perpetual Charge on your Charge Staff. For the longest time, I was using Perpetual Charge, and it seems nice, right? Supported skills have 35% chance to not remove charges, but still count as consuming them. So I would use it, it would not consume them, and I would be happy, right? I still have all my charges. But, if you'll notice, on my tree, 20% increased critical damage bonus if you've consumed a power charge recently. And I have 3 of them. So that's 60% increased. This one over here is another 20. Okay, so that's 80. 80% crit damage bonus. And these 3 increased energy shield if you've consumed a power charge recently. So that's 60% increased energy shield and 80% crit damage bonus. So I noticed when you used your Charge Staff and you got the Perpetual Charge to proc and it did not consume them, you would think that it would still consume them, just not get rid of them off of your character. And I noticed that it was not proccing my crit damage bonus or my energy shield when I was using this, and I got lucky and it didn't remove the charges. Notice it says, but still counts as consuming them. It does not. Okay, it does not, to the ones on the tree at least. It has to visibly be consumed and you not have them anymore. Thankfully, this is not that big of a deal to have. You get 7 charges very easily. So I thought it was going to be kind of a big deal to not have this, but it was not a big deal at all. So do not use Perpetual Charge on the Charge Staff. It seems good. You can use it at early levels, but once you go into this and these over here, do not use it anymore, or you're just not gonna, 35% of the time, you're not gonna get those procs. Okay, so just take it out. Alright, Herald of Ice. This is our blow up ability for clear. This is one of the more important things to have. So we'll just talk about what it does. So it gets attack damage 265%. Notice what I said, it's an attack. So all of those other buffs that are buffing my attacks also contribute to this. +1 level, pretty simple, just adds a level to it. Supported skills have more area of effect. Ambush, supported skill has 100% more critical hit chance against enemies that are on full life. I do that because most of the time I'm attacking enemies close to me with Ice Strike. They pop, and the Herald of Ice just spreads in a larger pop, 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 and just one-shots everything. So that's just a good added damage bonus. And critical hits with cold damage help freeze more frequently. So very good to have. And attacks gain 35% of damage as lightning damage for 3 seconds on killing a shocked enemy with supported skills. And we are shocking, like I said, with this and with Herald of Thunder. So that's a buff that just gives us basically 35% more damage for all of our attacks, and that applies to every attack. And this actually, you wouldn't think it procs all that often, but I do shock quite frequently. And you could see by the gameplay that I basically have this up at all times, as long as there's enough density. So just another flat 35% of damage, which is really nice. Herald of Thunder, kind of the same as Herald of Ice, brings down little bolts of lightning. Same kind of deal, +1 level of supported lightning skills. Supported skills inflict lightning exposure on shocking an enemy. We'll probably move this over to the bell once I get that to 6-linked, because I would like to use that against bosses as well. But for right now, that can stay on this, because that helps with the rares. And have 50% increased critical strike chance against immobilized enemies. And let's look at this really fast. Target is immobilized if it cannot move, for example, due to being frozen, pinned, heavy stunned, or electrocuted. And we are freezing all the time. So just a good flat damage bonus for our strikes going down. And, once again, crits help with inflicting damaging elements like shock and freeze. So that helps apply those shocks. Alright, moving on to the last thing. Grim Feast. So this basically creates these little buffers on the ground. You'll see them very easily. And they basically just give you more energy shield, and they can overflow. So the big reason I do this is, you say you kill a bunch of mobs, like say you kill a pack of 8 mobs, they drop a few of the little shards that increase your energy shield. It'll give you, I don't know, like an extra 1,000 energy shield. And whenever I consume charges, I have, which I'm doing constantly, by the way, so I'll have an extra 60% due to these. So it just gives me a ton of energy shield. A ton of energy shield. Very good. Alright, done with skills. If there was a way, say if I got like an unset ring, because both of these rings have maximum mana, say if this was an unset ring or something, I could add another skill and somehow get 30 more, or 28 more spirit, I would go into Ghost Dance. Okay? When hit, consumes a Ghost Shroud to recover your energy shield equal to 5% air evasion. That's what I was going into before I figured out Grim Feast is just broken. Um, very, very good defensive. Uh, when you get hit, it just sucks one of those Ghost Shrouds up and recovers your energy shield equal to 5% air evasion. Just good to have. Good combo with Wind Dancer here. Okay, now we'll get into items. Okay, for the items, we'll start off with the weapon first. So weapon, um, I would say try to shoot for getting a barrier quarterstaff. That's the one that has the block chance implicit, as you can see. 10%. I unfortunately only got one with 10%. Just another added layer of defense that we have. We don't have all that much defense. I mean, we have very high evasion, and we have a decent amount of energy shield. You'll see my energy shield go up way more in the gameplay. I think I sit around somewhere in the 3,000 range or so. So I have about 5k effective HP, which is nice. Along with like 70 something percent evasion, which is pretty tanky. Um, but yeah, so main thing is just get probably a 400 physical DPS quarterstaff. So first rule of thumb is high fizz damage. Okay, high fizz damage. I would say the next most important thing is attack speed. Try to shoot for above 10% attack speed. And then next most important is crit chance. So I got lucky enough to get one with 4.82% crit chance. So you can see I'm rocking 14.82% flat crit on this weapon. So that's the order. So fizz damage, most important. Attack speed, second most. Crit hit chance, third most. And then if I ever do get an upgrade, if you can shove on another mod on there, plus level to melee skills probably would be the next thing I can think of. Or just flat added cold damage would also be nice. Like a high roll of flat added cold damage would be nice. Or honestly, accuracy, because accuracy is kind of needed in some other parts of this build. All those can all kind of fill that gap. And then on gear, we're just going with like a really, really standard setup. Get all of your resistances. Try to find armor that has good evasion, good energy shield, good resistances, rarity, because that's kind of the thing right now. Everybody's getting rarity. This is basically like my helmet right here is just get this for every item. Like 2 resistances, a rarity, life, and high evasion and energy shield. Okay. That's basically the theme for my gear. Let's see. Yeah. I have this with dexterity and intelligence. By the way, you are going to want intelligence on one of your pieces, like 30-ish intelligence, just to have a higher level requirement for some of these skills. If you are having trouble getting some of the spirit skills, like this one's 119 dex, this one's 133 int, as you can see. So that's why I have dexterity and intelligence on this chest specifically for that, so I can qualify for the better version of Grim Feast. Yeah, I got it exactly at 133 so that I could use the level 14 Grim Feast. But yeah, 56 spirit, don't forget that. 56 spirit, huge. 46 spirit on this one. So anything at that or above it. Alright. Gloves, same thing. Don't even care about the lightning damage to attacks, doesn't really matter. Just cold, lightning res. Don't even have life on them. Just cold, lightning, rarity, high evasion, high energy shield. Same with these. 25% or 30% movement speed is good enough. Rarity, cold, lightning, don't even have life. Yeah. Should be the same with belt. Chaos, cold. That's literally it on the belt. Just trying to get resistances. And then, you guessed it, same thing with the rings. I actually made this ring myself. You got pretty lucky with it. I needed the accuracy, so I got a really good accuracy rating. Got 25% chaos resistance, lightning resistance, 36%. But the biggest thing is almost 40% increased rarity. I could probably sell this for like 8 div. I got pretty lucky on it. Yeah. And same thing over here. Thankfully, I got increased cold damage on this one. That's nice to have. Forgot about that. But yeah, just getting resistances and rarity. That's basically all gear is, resistances and rarity. And up to the necklace finally. Got more accuracy. I don't even need this accuracy on this necklace. The only thing I really need on this necklace is the spirit and the rarity. I don't even care about the +1 level to all melee skills. Okay? And that's it. So, last thing before I move on, if I was to anoint anything to this necklace, I would go with this skill over here. So Storm Charge, 40% increased elemental damage if you've dealt a critical hit recently. 20% increased critical strike chance. So just good critical hit chance increase. Don't even really need it at this point since I'm almost 50% crit hit chance. But yeah. And then the biggest thing is we don't have flat damage, really, like flat increases in elemental damage anywhere for the most part. But this would be really, really, really nice to have a 40% increase elemental damage if you've dealt a crit recently, which is in the last 4 seconds, and I'm critting. That's basically how I do all my damage is crits, so that would be perfect to anoint. Or if you want to feel even tankier, you can find somewhere on the tree that would help you with your tankiness, some kind of thinking about that myself. I was thinking about going into this, but slower start of energy shield recharge. I don't know if I would like that, but I would say that's a decent defensive to go into. Yeah. But you can be the chooser on that. And yeah, that is about everything. Oh, before I forget, charm. I use a stone charm for whenever I become stunned. It will break me out of the stun. The only issue with this build is element immunity. Element threshold is kind of an issue, and I don't have many avenues to get out of that. So it's pretty easy to become frozen. That's basically the only thing that kills me anymore is if I become frozen, because you'll get freezed for quite a long time, and monsters will just mob you. But it only happens, I would say, like 1 out of every 20 maps, so it's not that big of a deal. But yeah. Alrighty. Thank you for watching the guide. Please like and subscribe, and please comment with any questions you have. Hopefully I can get this tree uploaded somewhere. I would love a comment about where I can upload my tree to, because I couldn't really find one. There's no POB or a paste bin like in POE1 for this game just yet. At least I'm not aware of it. So if you do find one, just let me know, and so I can link this guide to everybody else. Alright, awesome. Thanks. Bye.